Life is weird.
Life is weird. Koji, I'm so happy you're here.
I am happy to be here.
Lloyd, Koji, Lloyd, and my friend
Hi, Koji.
Gabby is here too.
Hi.
She's here. You just can't see her. She's hiding. Just kidding. But we'll get going. We were just talking about some conspiracies, and Lloyd was just about to share with us a little bit about a paranormal experience.
It's stupid. It's like,
okay, you can just share it quickly then. If it's
it was just like this thing when I was like between like 4 and 7. I don't remember how old I was. My dad lived in an apartment that was haunted, and nobody believed me. And it's not true that nobody believed me. Actually, people made it seem like they didn't believe me on purpose. We're gonna come back to that, but it was this whole thing where I would wake up and my dad would always watch Walker, Texas Ranger. That's the show that would be on when we go to sleep. It was like a 2-bedroom apartment, but one was just like stored stuff. And so it was me, my stepmom, my sister, and I, and my dad. My sister and I would sleep on this little, like, just like a mattress on the floor.
Yeah.
And TV be on, go to sleep, whatever. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and feel like really weird. And I would look at the TV, which was off, but I could see the reflection of somebody walking from the room into the hallway. Now, a rational person would say, it's probably my dad turning off the TV. Except I would see this person go into the bathroom and close the door. And in the morning, the bathroom would be locked. And this happened multiple times. And there was this whole thing. Not going to put
crazy.
Hopefully this doesn't blow up so my mom doesn't hear me say this. But there was a time when I was in high school and my mom and my cousin Xavier and I were talking about, because my cousin Xavier and I were really into paranormal stuff. We've watched like Ghost Adventures, Haunting in Connecticut, and all that stuff. And I kind of like put her on blast because everybody was like, there's nothing wrong with this apartment. And the reason why everybody acted like there was nothing wrong in this apartment is because my mom basically has like PTSD from living in very haunted houses when they were kids. And so she like went off on me, and we never talked about paranormal stuff around my mom again.
That'll do it. So oh my God, that's so funny. I love your mom. I just want to say that really quickly. I love your mom. She's the best. Woman. She's the best. Koji, so you talk about paranormal stuff. You guys talk about everything, paranormal, conspiracy, but I really want to talk about the fact that, like, when I met you with the Skeptic Metaphysicians, when we were having our roundtable, I was so interested in the fact that, like, you're a screenwriter, a producer, an author, and like you just cover all the bases. So like you're obviously not shy about talking about conspiracy and paranormal and ghosts and all that stuff. So like, how did you get into becoming like a screenwriter and a producer and a writer and zombies? Like, did you have your own experience like Lloyd, No.
So as far as a writer, I think the first time that I ever wanted to be a writer or ever thought about being a writer was I was on the water polo team in 7th grade. And I used to make up stories about my family, just basically lying about my family all the way home from these games. And, I played at a private school and a prep school. So like they're long drives. And I just make up stories the entire way about my family. And my coach was like, you should become a writer. You're just like so much like crap. You're just saying so much crap and it's all lies. And I was like, all right, like this is like, and that was the first time that anybody ever said that I should be a writer. And so after that, I started writing poetry. I was going through a lot. My dad was really sick. And so I was writing this really bad poetry. At the time, I thought it was awesome, but it turns out it's really bad. And I just kind of started writing, a lot. And the thing was, at the time, this is like, I look relatively young. I'm like really old. When I was first in film school or, I was in school, there was no Asian American screenwriters. There was like, we didn't exist. And so when I looked at my career, I was like, there's nobody that looks like me doing what I wanted to do. So I thought I couldn't do it. So I did a bunch of other things and I kind of came around to writing. And then I took a screenwriting course kind of on a lark. I was going to quit. I was on a writing program at USC and I was going to quit. And then my girlfriend at the time was like, you're spending so much money. You're so much in the hole that you should not quit. And so she said, take a screenwriting class. I took a screenwriting class and I was like, this is super easy. I totally get how to write screenplays. And so then I sold the screenplay really fast. And I was like, this is super easy. I could do it. And, I didn't realize it was actually going to be really hard. But at the time, I thought that was going to be my career right there. So, that's kind of how it started.
Wow, that speaks like huge to me, especially being in voiceover. I don't know, Gabby, it's like you just pour all this money into something. You're like, I'm going to quit. And then at least you had someone talk you out of quitting.
The funny thing is, I just want to say,
yeah,
because of a conversation we had earlier today, I went back and had like a CSV of like the money I've spent. And I was like, and this is only money this money is only before last September. Only starting from last September.
Yeah, we can't go down that rabbit hole.
And I'm just like, oh my God.
But let me just say, all of you guys have really great voices. So
thank you.
Thank you.
You guys picked the right profession.
I do have a question though. What's it like being a trailblazer? Because, you like, you're part of this Asian American community, and there aren't a lot, it's not a big community. And so what's it like being the first?
Well, I'm not the first.
Well, not the first, but
but yeah, well, at my film school, I was one of the few Asian Americans at the time, but or in my writing program, I should say. In general, like in the beginning, it was tough because there was just really like a lot of times you had two kinds of Asian Americans that were in the industry. You had one that was like, I don't want to be seen with you because I don't want to be seen as doing Asian projects, right? Like they didn't want to be the Asian guy or the Asian woman. And then you had the people that were being allies and wanted to help and wanted to build something up. But nowadays, the great thing about nowadays is there's a ton of, there's a lot more Asian American creators, a lot more Asian American actors, and there's just a lot more Asian Americans out there. So it's really exciting. But yeah, I always say that I was doing Asian American movies when nobody wanted to see Asian people. No one wanted to see people on screen. No one wanted to hear our stories. No one wanted to hear anything like that.
Did you ever feel like nobody wanted to hear anything and you just wanted to like kind of give up a little? Or
every single day, like it was tough, there's still no money in Asian American movies and stuff, but it's tough, like, and then especially when it's not, you spend all this money and time and effort and work, and then it's never, and it doesn't really get out. But what I will say, to all the creators, and this is what I tell my students all the time, I teach screenwriting as well, is that we have no say in how a project does, right? Like you could write like a really, really amazing book and it comes out on 9/11, no one cares, right? Because it's like everyone's worried about 9/11. Or you could write the worst book in the world, AKA Twilight, and all of a sudden like, I'm sorry, like I've read Twilight, so I could say that. It's like, she's a terrible writer in the terrible books, but she like, it hit a zeitgeist, right?
Timing.
And everybody read it, everybody saw it, it was huge. I know a ton of talented writers that are way better, like that have never been published or been published. And so like, one of my favorite novelists, who's my friend, was like, it has nothing to do with you. And you can't base your self-esteem on how a project, self-worth on how a project does, because it's out of your hands, So that's kind of the way I think about a lot of these projects. You just don't know.
It's like divine timing, right? I mean, some people have the golden touch, right? And then there's some people that just, and there's sometimes this divine timing,
Yeah. I mean, if you came out with a book on 9/11, bad timing. Right?
Just a little bit. And you have a couple, like, you've been all over the place. Like you're on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Peacock, Paramount Plus, Roku.
Oh my.
My middle is trying to get me to subscribe to Paramount Plus. I'm like, I think we're on enough platforms.
Yeah.
And is it Tubi?
Tubi. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've I'm looking at your movies that you've worked on. You have 8 feature films. That's pretty cool. And The Commando, and I recognize Mickey Rourke, and that's pretty cool. And Michael J. White. And then I want to know a little bit more about the Skeletons in the Closet. Now, is that out, or was it like just finished up and it's like not yet launched? Or
no, yeah, we just shot that in March in Las Vegas, so it hasn't come out yet. No.
With Cuba Gooding Jr. and Terrence Howard. So that's cool. So
yes.
Lloyd's in Vegas.
Yes.
Did you see
and
them
from
shooting?
Vegas?
No. But it's funny you bring that up, because I started to listen to an episode of your podcast. It was the Tupac one.
Okay.
And I realized, like, as soon as I started listening to it, there's like a pre-roll ad, and it was very specifically a Vegas one. And I was like, are they here?
No.
Or okay. I
It's
was
just
like,
the ad company doesn't like localize it. So whenever you download it,
yeah.
Yeah. So so it's like basically wherever you're listening, that's where the ad is probably.
Yeah.
I normally don't have it happen that specifically. That's why.
Really? Ooh, yeah, a
because
conspiracy.
It works.
It did work. I mean, normally if it's that specific, the ad plays before, like it's pre-roll, but if it's like included on the actual timeline, like of the so they're just doing really good work, whatever ad agency that is.
So okay, so a lot of your books and like graphic novels are around zombies, right? So I know we touched on this one last time when we first met. Like, why zombies? Because like I asked Lloyd this question earlier. If you had to, like, zombie or vampire, you had to choose, and he's like, wait, surviving from, or like, do I want to be one? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know, whatever. And we both agreed vampires, but like you're team zombie, like all the way. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to speak on your behalf.
We agreed that surviving as a vampire.
Yes, we agreed. That would be way
trying
better.
to survive vampires
would be easier than zombies.
Would not. It depends. It depends. A zombie apocalypse is like an apocalypse, but like if it's something like what I was telling you about, like Impact Winter, where like vampires take over, the vampires are smart. Like
we're food, basically.
Yeah. So why zombies?
I've always loved zombies. Some of the first movies I watched as a kid were the zombie movies, right? The Romero movies. So those really stuck with me. But first and foremost, it's always about survival. I love, like, I'm secretly, like, my wife kind of keeps me in check here, but I'm basically like, if she wasn't around, I'd be a prepper, right? I'd have a bunker. Like, I can't keep that much food because she'd get mad at me, or that much water, or that much supplies. But I have enough to, like, we have enough to live for a little while. But, like, that's ultimately like my secret goal in life, is to like experience something amazing, crazy. I was going to say amazing, because probably not amazing if it wasn't. Because, like,
who you ask.
That's true. Well, like the thing I tell people about the end of the world and the zombie apocalypse is that, like, well, not really as a zombie apocalypse. This advice does not work with zombie apocalypse, but in general, like end of the world kind of things, it's always about your will to live. That's all it is. It's always like, do you want to live? And if you don't, you're probably not going to survive it. And if you do, you're going to survive, like the zombie or the thing. So, I think it's fun. I'm not really into vampires all that much, to be honest with you. I just don't find them all that interesting. I think I've written one script and it didn't really go anywhere. So.
Are you the type of person gosh, I can't speak. Are you the type of person who's read Max Brooks's Zombie Survival Guide? Or How to Survive a Zombie? Okay.
Yeah.
There's people who like zombies, and then there's people who go out of their way to read that book.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I've read almost every zombie book out there. I've listened to every zombie thing on Audible. I watch all the zombie movies. I'm obsessed. I mean, like, so when I watch movies, like, most of the time it's for work, right? Like, I'm writing this kind of movie, I need to watch these kinds of movies. One of the few movies that I do watch on my own are usually horror movies. And then if there's not, specifically like zombie movies are the things that really like get me excited.
So it's like your for fun movies, right? The rest is just for work. So how did you get involved in these movie TV projects? Did you just was it divine timing, and like being a screenwriter? I mean, how does that all work? Because I'm like thinking like screenwriter, producer, director, and then all of a sudden like the movie and the actors and everything. Like how does that all work? Like, where do you fit into the mix?
So my first movie that I ever got made was my mother apparently was my agent at the time. I didn't realize this. She knew this famous Japanese director who needed an American screenwriter to rewrite a script that he was doing for America. So that she pitched me and I got the job, and that set my career up. But, in general, it's a hustle, it's always like, you got to go out there, you got to be able to talk, when I talk to students and when I tell people about my career, I always say, it's like talent is one thing. Like you have to have some kind of talent, but like in my program, I wasn't nearly the most talented writer in the program. I would say like generously, like I was about like an average middle of the writer there. But what made me different was I love to talk. I love the network. I could raise money. I could do all those things. Whereas a lot of my girlfriend at the time, who's probably the most amazing writer I ever met, she didn't want to talk to people. And so she wrote these amazing things, but no one ever read it because she wouldn't go out there. Whereas I was like constantly hustling. I get internships. I go to networking events. I meet, like my wife hates it, but when I meet a rich person, my eyes like I'm like, okay, let's like, I don't care for a kid's birthday party or like at a library. It's like, I'm going to pitch them. I'm going to get money from this person to make this project. And that's just the kind of attitude you need to, in order to make this project. But what I will say about this industry that I think is important real quick, is that like everybody, when they think of like screenwriters or directors or actors, they think of like the really, really famous and rich, like first director, like they think of Quentin Tarantino, or they think that you're working at McDonald's. When in reality, there's a whole group of middle-class writers, actors, directors who like do well. They're not like famous, but they make enough to live and survive like me, but they're not like, so like, I think a lot of creatives, if you just accept that that you can make a living doing this, but you're maybe not ever going to be Quentin Tarantino, your life will be happier,
You just validated my whole life.
I was going to say that's a lot like voice acting. There's so many people that are like, everybody knows who they are. And then there's so many people who nobody has ever heard of, but they're doing just fine.
But you're making money. You constantly have projects like you said, I think I have like 10 movies and no one's ever heard of me, but that's okay. Cause I have a great life. I have a happy life. I'm doing what I care to, what I want to do. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you're podcasting and you're hanging out and you're going on other podcasts and you're getting to know other people in the industry and just meeting new people. And that's like the whole fun part of it,
Yeah.
And I think there's also a level of like being able to like fly underneath the radar, right? Like when you're that household name, like, I mean, whether you're an actor, a screenwriter, producer, like you can't really go anywhere and do anything and like have a life that you want to live, you know, like if you do what you love and pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
and to be happy.
Don't get me wrong. I'd love to be rich and famous, but it's like, but it's not like my self-worth isn't tied to me being rich and famous.
Yes.
Right. That's the most important thing, that my art and my career is like I told my son, he's an amazing baseball player. I say, I'm doing something that thousands of people would want to do. And I'm lucky to do it. That's the kind of and I have to tell myself that all the time.
Yes.
In order to make sure that I don't feel like I'm wasting my life,
Thank you for saying that, because I literally am at a journey in voiceover where there are days where I literally feel like I'm walking in the booth and I'm literally paying to work for free, right? That's what you're doing. And you're like, am I spinning my wheels? Am I doing, but then at the end of the day, I know I'm modeling for my son, my teenager is getting ready to go to college, and I'm like, listen, if there's something that you really enjoy and really want to do and you're interested in right now, don't talk yourself out of it at 16, 17 years old. Go for it. Find ways, internships, go work at companies that are in the umbrella or the pocket of what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Because there's, you don't need to fit in a box, and
there's sacrifices you have to make, totally. I didn't go to clubs as much as my friends, or I didn't go to bars. I was writing, and when people asked me what I was doing, I was like, I'm writing. That's my job. I can go out once in a while, but even that's what I tell my son all the time. He wants to be a Major League Baseball player. So he plays baseball literally all the time. And I tell him there's sacrifices. And when those sacrifices aren't worth what you end up wanting, then you need to quit and do something else. Yeah. But you're going to miss birthday parties. You're not going to play video games as much as your friends. You can't, you're going to be working out while they're eating at McDonald's. That's just what you have to do in order to make whatever career you want to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we always talk about networking too, being, networking is key. And I think also, in something that I like to think about is networking, not just networking. Yes, of course you want to get people to invest in you, right? Or pick you up as a voice actor, but also networking and getting to know people and picking their brains about where they are and what they're doing, how they got there, because that's also an interesting part of the process of being a creative, is finding how other creatives did it too. Yeah.
And that's the mistake most creative people make, is they always asking for things buy my script. Put me in your movie, put my song in your movie, and it's that's so I always tell people you should ask questions about them. People love to talk about themselves. So, you know, like you talk to them, you work with them, not like the first thing out of your mouth shouldn't be give me. Right. That's not a great networking tool.
Yeah.
Crazy thing about that is like, I'm an introvert. We know this, you know, we've had this conversation.
Yes, we have.
We all are.
By the way.
But I, especially when it comes to like voiceover, I go out of my way to introduce myself to people, you know, voiceover and like nerdy stuff that happens here in Vegas. And some of that has actually turned into like, hey, you know, this person, that's really cool. And then, you know, whatever. But I think a lot of people fail to realize how much value there is in interacting with other people and gaining perspective from those interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, because people always say, like, especially when it comes to acting or voice acting, you know, the best thing you can do for yourself is experience life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think really that applies to anything.
Totally. I agree with you 100%. Gabby, I feel like you wanted to interject something right there, so I'm just going to hand the mic to you.
No, I was just going to ask them. So in every industry, this kind of happens, and we've talked about it before. Is there, or has there ever been a time where you've had an offer to write something that wasn't in your like wheelhouse?
Or didn't like maybe like feel good, maybe like, or didn't like mesh with like, you know, like your values or something? Is that where you're going at? Or
yeah, because that happens to us all the time where we have to lend
totally.
our voice.
Yes.
Yeah. So my general
voice is out.
My general rule in writing is that I will say yes. With that being said, I have been approached with one particular project that I found offensive and that I did turn it down because it would hurt my career if my name was ever associated with it. But in general, yeah, like my general thing is like I always tell people say yes until it's a no, because you just never know like what's going to happen in terms. But yeah, if it's like racist or, you know, something that's not great, then I try to stay as far away from that as possible.
Yeah.
What if it's like not in your wheelhouse? Like maybe you've never written anything like that before. Do you still try it?
Yeah. You know, the crazy thing about, you know, I've about writing in general and just writing is that it's always scary. You know, I tell all my students and that the first word I write on any script, even if I've written like that kind of script a million times, or I've never written that genre before or that topic before, it's always scary. It's always super scary, that first word. This is why when I first start writing a script, I set really, really low goals in the beginning. Like I make it really easy for me to get over that goal. And then I start to feel better. And then I gain steam and I could write more. But yeah, it's always scary. I don't care if I've written, you know, a million of those movies or not. It's always scary. So that's why my philosophy is always yes, right? I always say yes because you just, you know, like it's scary no matter what. So if you're willing to pay me, I'm willing to write it.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do it.
Impressive. It's like, impressive because you've also talked about how you don't get writer's block.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah. Writer's block is just a mindset, you know, and I think that it's the big thing is that you just got to get in the habit of like when you open your computer, you're inspired, you close your computer, you cease to be inspired. And this is a job. And I think too many people think of it like as like something different than a job, but this is just a job. Yeah.
Like something whimsical, like you're on vacation and enjoying, you're sitting by the pool and then you're just being inspired and you're just writing on a notepad.
Yeah. I mean, there are writers like that, but you know, like, I mean, in general, like I like a lot of times I'm writing things I don't want to write, you know, like at the end of the day, what I tell people is that if you had $1 billion and you wanted to write a story, are you going to have me write your story or my story? Most billionaires are thinking they're going to write my story, right? Like their story, because they're the ones with $1 billion. So in general, like I think in my career, I write 80% other people's stuff and 20% my stuff, you know, and the 20% my stuff is free until I could sell it, do something with it, raise money. So like, I mean, in my head, I'm always like, well, if you're going to pay me to write, I'm going to do that project. And a lot of times there's stuff that I would never have thought of. I'm not interested in, I don't want to write most of the time.
So how do you do that? How do you get into writing writing something that like you're not into, you know what I'm saying? Like, you must have a process. I'm assuming you must have.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of development and outlining and stuff that you have to do, but first and foremost, it's got to be a movie I would want to watch myself.
Okay.
You know, the story I always tell people and the thing I remember when I write is that one of the things I tell my son is that, you never be the guy that goes around telling jokes that you don't think are funny. Like if he's going to walk around telling jokes, it needs to be the joke that he thinks is funny. And so when he laughs, at least even nobody else laughs. People appreciate you because you're like at least laughing at a joke you think is funny. The worst kind of people or the worst kind of dudes are like, here, let me tell you a joke. And then they say a joke that they don't think is funny. No one thinks it's funny because, and it comes off as inauthentic. In the same way in screenwriting, I got to write movies that I would want to watch.
Yes.
And if it fails, at least I would want to watch it. Right. And when my screenplays have failed, it's because I was writing it in a way that I wouldn't have wanted to watch it. Like, so for example, there's